everyone, Zirin here. So recently I've gotten into playing a series near and dear to my heart, one I started over a decade and a half ago, the Dept Heaven series by Sting Entertainment. Dept Heaven is many things, difficult, unwieldy, but most importantly, it was a series that was never afraid to try something completely new. I'm going to go on a limb and make the assumption that most people are probably unfamiliar with this series, mostly because there are only 4 mainline entries and it hasn't seen a new entry in nearly a decade. The Dept Heaven franchise was 4 games developed by Sting Entertainment. Although it is considered a series, they are not directly connected, but rather thematically through an amalgamation of Norse mythology combined with Japanese elements, and through the uniqueness of each game's mechanics, which if you know anything about me, that's what I'm all about. There are 4 entries, or episodes as they are labeled. Episode 1, Riviera, The Promised Land in 2002 on the WonderSwan and later Game Boy Advance. Episode 2, Yggdra Union Will Never Fight Alone in 2006 on the same console. Episode 4, Nights in a Nightmare in 2008 on the DS. And Episode 9, Gungnir, Inferno, The Demon Lance and the War of Heroes in 2011 on the PSP. Which sounds like an overly long title, but at least it kinda makes sense as opposed to something like 12 Riven, the Cycliminal of the Integral, which, yes, is a real title to a game. The astute viewer out there might have noticed that the numbering might be a little off. No, I didn't have a brain spasm, that's just how this series was labeled. Episode 3 was meant to be a PC MMORPG that never came out. Episode 5 to 8 just straight up never existed. Just think of it as a really quirky numbering system to go along with the rest of the weirdness. Also, every single game except for Gungnir has remakes on the PSP, since that was Gungnir's native platform. For the next 2 weeks or so, I plan on hitting up all 4 of these games one by one, starting with Riviera. However, I want to give an overview of sorts to the entire series, and a bit about the company behind it, Sting Entertainment, today, so that you have a better idea of what to expect coming to each game. And most importantly, I can focus directly on each game individually as we get to them. What I appreciate the most about the Dept Heaven series is that every single one of these 4 games, regardless of how good or polished they actually are, all try to have different and unique mechanics that you don't see in other games. They also are, for the most part, pretty tough and challenging games, which I find to be a whole lot of fun, and it also helps that they have this rough anime SD art style going on that I just plain like. I think the only one that can be considered having a easy difficulty would be the first entry, Riviera, The Promised Land. And even though I said just now, regardless of how polished or good, I think most of the series are just great experiences as a whole, with the rough part only adding to the appeal of these hidden gems. The reason why I want to talk about it in the first place was because I found myself honestly having a pretty enjoyable time playing the PSP remakes, and I also felt like it was a series that didn't really ever get its time of day. Another part I just love about this series is that it has a very old school way of having secrets and collectibles. Multiple endings, plenty of secrets, and an absolute ton of hidden items in every game. The Dept Heaven series is honestly a completionist's nightmare, but for the average player, it's a lot of fun to just discover all there is to every game and getting used to every system. I think the stories and themes for most of these games are also rather nice as a whole. Underneath its cute anime art style, there is actually a decently serious storyline that doesn't always have a happy ending. Many of the characters face some pretty tough situations. The stories in each game cover a war tale from a different perspective. Yggdra Union as a classic princess of a ruined kingdom fighting back against an evil empire, Nights in the Nightmare as a forgotten spirit wandering through the aftermath of a kingdom once prosperous, but now ravaged by war, and Gungnir as a juvenile son of a persecuted minority population who ends up leading a rebellion against a powerful empire who seeks to crush them permanently. Riviera is there, I guess, but again, it's probably the odd one out, being a pretty happy-go-lucky JRPG for the most part. I think the world surrounding the Dept Heaven series is also pretty cool, which itself is based around Norse mythology, but switched up to throw their own spin on it. The Grim Angels, Sacrifices, Valkyries, Einherjards, tons of the good stuff. Music as a whole throughout the series is also quite outstanding, which is fairly impressive considering it started on the WonderSwan of all things. Shigeki Hayashi and Minako Adachi do a fantastic job, and plenty of the songs are dang good. They fit the games incredibly well and give them a vibrant sort of energy that they otherwise wouldn't have. Now let's get into talking about Sting Entertainment itself. The reason why I started out by assuming most people haven't heard of this company is because even though they've been around since the 1990s, every game they've released outside of Dept series has been either Japanese only, extremely obscure, really bad, or a mixture of all three. I mean, I know Treasure Hunter G on the SNES, but that's only because I checked out the Aeon Genesis fan translations. They've re-released Baroque, and having played a little bit of the Wii version, it definitely isn't for everyone. From what I have seen, most of their other games that they have personally developed and not just helped out on have received some pretty mixed reception. Heck, aside from Dokapon Kingdom, which is admittingly a pretty fun board game if you really want to backstab your friends, they haven't done anything of note aside from the Dept series, and the last entry in that was 2011's Gungnir. Apparently, they helped out with the battle system for Utareru Mono Itsewari no Kamen and Futari no Akoro, which is a two-part amazing visual novel that I really love and would suggest you play, but I wouldn't really consider that as them releasing a game. The last thing they released is Dimension Traveler 2-2, and I'm not even gonna pretend like I know anything about that game. Well, okay, I guess it's actually the Dokapon Kingdom other spin-off using the Utareru Mono brand, but yeah, same thing. From what I can guess, Sting Entertainment has moved on from making their own games to assisting others in their gameplay department, which I find to be a dang shame. I think the magical part of the Dept series was just how crazy they went with every single game system, that it truly felt like a unique experience every time that I wouldn't see in another game series. This combined with their actually decently made stories with serious storylines and fun characters is what kept me coming back time and time again. While the battle systems in the games they helped on are certainly serviceable, they're just kind of normal and expected as opposed to the craziness that was the Dept series. While this franchise never felt like a AAA game by any means, and it most certainly isn't, I think that's kind of the charm of it. Just like the PC Dojin games I love talking about, the Dept series always felt like a surprise, where even the audience didn't have any real way to guess how the next game in the series would play out, or what it would even be about. It was exciting to eagerly anticipate what the series would try next. Sure, at times the gameplay can be a little too out there, and might even make the player want to tear their hair out, but I never felt as if the gameplay was something I've seen a million times before. Even if the game wasn't all that great, like in the case of Gungnir, at least it was interesting. I would have loved to seen an episode 5 to 8 of the Dept series come out, and if Sting Entertainment ever decided to suddenly make another entry on a portable machine like, say, the Switch, I'd be down to play it. They still hold the license to the series, and Sting Entertainment is still an active company, even if they haven't released a game on their own in quite some time. So it is a possibility, granted a low one, but hey, Utareru Mono got a sequel like a decade after the original PC release, so anything is possible, right? Anyhow, yeah, I'll be covering the rest of the Dept series one by one in the coming weeks. I'll link the first one, Riviera, the Promised Land, when the video comes out, in the top right corner and at the very end. If you enjoyed listening to me talk about obscure Japanese games, all the supporter stuff is in the same place as always, like subscribe, notifications. Again, here are two more of my videos. One will be Riviera when it comes out, and with that, I'll see you later. Till next time.